Hey guys, I know it's been a long time since I've done campaign diaries. I want to get back in the habit. I do like kind of making the content. The unfortunate fact has been the campaign diaries I was getting a little burnt out on, and I couldn't come up with any good topics to do. Becoming a dungeon master on that, and so I just kind of stopped. Plus, it wasn't like I was just sitting around. I had plenty of other stuff that I could be doing, so I just let myself kind of get wrapped up in that. So, hence the lack of videos, but I'm going to try and get back in. And it may not be a great stream, it may not be like this constant downpour of content, but I will hopefully try and keep something fairly steady. We'll see. Again, I would like to try and come up with some more ideas for stuff you guys want me to talk about, any subjects, especially with being a dungeon master where you have questions and such. And then I'd be happy to kind of discuss it. Basically, if you request it, I'll make a video on it. So, in the meantime, though, we're here to hear about the Oovrenguard. And when we did our last video, it was during their adventure, shall we say, in the Temple of Elemental Evil. And that's exactly what we're going to pick up. I'm going to kind of recap a bunch of stuff because we've been playing for quite a bit since then, and so they've made quite a bit of progress. And I'll have some of the next couple of videos will probably be more like recap videos where I go over what happened over the course of a couple sessions. That way I'm not trying to remember, okay, what exactly happened in what session. I can just focus on here's everything that happened. I can try and get us caught up more or less to where we are now currently. So to start off, again, when last we left our heroes, they had just completed the Earth Tower of the Temple of Elemental Evil, and of course, having completed so, they rushed to the next tower. I think they were just at this point working kind of in a counterclockwise, I think it was counterclockwise. It really doesn't matter, but they kind of were just working their way around the tower. And of course, what I did is as they were getting ready to come down, I had them, as they were like, okay, we've destroyed the orb, and now we need to get down the stairs, and they could just hear voices. And what they heard was a bunch of steps coming up the stairs, and they kind of took a quick peek down. And they saw that Master Lareth had, along with her lieutenant and a couple other people, were charging up the stairs, and this led to a quick fight. At the same time, though, the whole tower is actually collapsing, and the stairs are falling out, and there was that sense of the temple is collapsing, and things are falling apart, and this is kind of almost on a time, there's kind of a ticking time bomb now. There's going to be a point where this is going to collapse, and if we're not done by then, we're all going to be buried underneath this thing. And it served, I think, as a good added flavor to the fight, because not only was there this idea of you could only find the stairs, but also sometimes the stairs would fall out. And one of the cultists, he died that way. He says stairs fell out from under him. Kiko fell down to 60 feet, and he took a bunch of damage, but he survived. But it just added something to the fight, which is exactly what I wanted. So it was fairly successful. However, halfway through the fight, Master Lareth and her lieutenant, they start running. However, the lieutenant does not survive the escape, but Lareth did escape. The rest of the cultists are, of course, quickly dispatched. The team makes it down. They start heading to the next tower. They head. Of course, they know at this point, don't even bother going to the top. Let's go straight down. They go to the bottom of the next tower, and this time the vortex is this flaming vortex, which of course gives it away that, okay, this can be the fire tower, let's take care of it. They hop in this vortex, and they come up, and they, wake up in this rocky cavern, dimly lit with kind of the faint reddish glow. And as they look forward, it's fairly rectangular, and the middle is this, it looks like a chessboard, from wall to wall, with a little bit of gap on one end where they are, and then the doorway at the far end. It just looks like this chessboard, like someone has engraved this flat, they can see it's not black and white, but it's got the line. Someone's drawn this grid almost in it, with each being about 4 or 5 feet by 4 or 5 feet. And they weren't quite sure what to do, and this was one of my favorite puzzles in the entire dungeon. They had to think about it. They kind of start by walking on a square. Okay, has anything happened? They take another step. Does anything happen? And okay, I go to take another, to the next square, to kind of that third step. And I explained as, this torrent of fire just erupts in front of you, kind of blocking your way. Okay, I'm gonna step to the side. Okay, nothing. Okay, I'm gonna turn and I'm gonna walk towards the other side, and fire just erupts again. And they basically kind of went back along this row, kind of realizing, okay, I can go two rows in before this torrent, the wall of flame kind of erupts. And they were trying to figure out something. But then they noticed the fact that I would always say, okay, you turn and face this way, and you step, and that's when it erupts. And I think it was Danny, actually, who's like, I looking to the side, I want to sidestep. And I said, okay, you sidestep. Okay, I move forward. Whoosh. And they quickly figured out that basically past that second row, it was an 8x8 grid, and past that second row, if you tried to step forward, a wall of flame would come out of the crack between the two squares and thus blocking away. And he's like, okay, great, so I'll just start sidestepping. Well, I knew that would be too easy, so what I did is I just placed a couple traps. Well, not a couple, there was like 10 squares that were booby trapped. There was I had a couple that were these fire pillars. There was one that were explosions that would send you flying. There was another one that was a fireball that would trap you in, that would kind of drop and start burning you while you're stuck in this. And they never came across the fireballs, but they ran into plenty of pillars and explosions, and they kind of did their best to try and figure, okay, I think they're here, and I think they're here. And they started moving everyone across, and it went pretty smoothly. Although finally, I think Esther was the last one to go, and she just said, you know what, I'm just going to side run the whole way. And that's what she did. And she actually ran into a couple traps, and she took quite a bit of damage. I think she was down to half health by the time she was done. But she didn't care, and if that's how you want to solve it, that's how you want to solve it. But they got through that, and they went into the room, and this one was kind of another fun one. As they walk in, the first thing they see is this massive turtle shell. And they're like, okay, fire turtle? Okay. And then out of its head comes this almost turkey head. And they're like, okay, this is weird. And then wings erupt, and legs start sprouting out. And it looks like someone has stuck basically a turtle shell on a turkey, and they could not figure out what was going on. And then it erupts in flames, and they're like, okay, well, roll initiative, and they start fighting it, and it's a good fight. It's not, they didn't almost die, nor did they kill it instantly. There was a good kind of back and forth. But then they brought it down, they're like, okay, awesome. And then it exploded. And it sends most of the party on their feet, onto their backs. It dealt a bunch of damage, and then it gets up again. And the party's like, are you kidding me? We have to fight this thing again? And I was like, it's a phoenix turtle. And they're like, shoot, we're never going to be able to kill this thing. And I had thought about, I gave it a set of hit points, and I knew it would, regenerate. But I knew, of course, it can't constantly regenerate, because I could have had maybe a gimmick, you had to do this thing, like a Hydra, you had to burn the head, the neck, before, otherwise the head regenerates. I thought about maybe doing something like that. I also thought about maybe saying, okay, it'll regenerate X number of times, and each time it regenerates, it gets only half health back, but it will still explode each time, but maybe the explosions do less. I toyed with that, but I eventually just settled on, okay, it will regenerate once at, it had started off with 150, I gave it an extra 100 on its regeneration, and that was it. Garza was there, and she, I think she was the one to give the killing blow, so I gave her the, you just as you strike the final blow, the phoenix turtle explodes, and the fire just seems to kind of pour into you. You feel yourself just burning up from the inside, and you sprout a pair of fiery wings. And now Garza can once a day basically cast fly on herself, but she has these fiery wings that do the flying for her. Of course, she thought that was awesome, and the players were like, hey, that's pretty cool, and they got out, they ran up the stairs, of course, now it's time for the riddle, and the riddle this time was, my life can be measured in hours. I serve being devoured. Thin I die quick, fat I die slow. Wind is my foe. And the players kind of had to think about it for a couple times. I can't remember all the guesses they gave, but they did give a couple incorrect guesses. Finally, they did come up with, okay, it's clearly something related to fire. quick, slow, devoured candle. Of course, that was the answer. They come up, and of course, now there's this giant ball of flame that they've got to disperse, and they did that by just splashing a bunch of water on it. The temple shakes again. They descend. They go to the next tower. This one, they've said, okay, we've done water, earth, fire. Clearly, the next one is air, which was exactly correct. Of course, they go straight down. Sorry, I have a little bit of phlegm. That's probably why I haven't done videos, is because I've actually been sick a lot for the last couple months, which has been weird. I usually don't get this sick. But this time, they go, and now there's this kind of tornado vortex at the bottom. They jump in there. They are in this room, small room. They open the door, and it's this hallway. And they're like, okay. They couldn't quite figure out what to do. And then they start, like, okay, clearly there's a trick here, but let's just try. Let's kind of spring the trap, if you will. They start walking. I explain, okay, you take about a step, and you just back to the end of the hallway. Okay, I take another step, back to the other hallway. And they could not figure out what to do. Every time they would take a step, they would get sucked back to the end of the hallway. And they could not figure out what to do. And I just sat there, and I just let them kind of figure it out, just kind of turn the wheels in their mind. And then, I believe it was Elias, he was like, I'm going to try to make like a stealth check or something like that. And I said, okay, you managed to, he rolled pretty well, so they made it, Osborne made it, I said, about halfway. I mean, it was a decently long hallway, so I wasn't going to give him the whole thing in one shot. He tried again, and he didn't roll so well, and he takes another step, and at that point, they figured it out. It's a silent hallway. Make noise, you send straight to the back. And after that, Osborne was like, oh, this is easy. Poof, silence. Cast silence around the entire, on himself. The rest of the party, is in that 20-foot range, so they just moved down the hallway. But it was nice because it took them a while just to think and try stuff. And now most of the time it was just like, and then they'd be like, dang it. Okay, what about this? Well, they did eventually succeed. They did make it to the hallway. This time their boss was a ghost bison. The phantom bison, as I called it. And it was a pretty good successful because what would happen, the gimmick for this one, not besides just being a bison, is it had two abilities that kind of really helped it stand out. The first is the fact that it had a kind of a psychic attack. I figured, it's kind of a ghost. It should be able to, it should be able to like attack you kind of mentally. Let's get some psychic in there because I don't use that too often. And I made it I gave it like an intelligence save, which most of the players don't worry about. Elias is the only one with a really good intelligence. So there was a lot of failed saves, which meant a lot of extra damage. I also had a necro aura, meaning to stand within 10 feet of it, you took extra damage. You just 10 damage, bam, no question, no save, just bam, you take damage. Of course, the Mind Blast was on a recharge. It also, the room was pitch black. And so they had to deal with light, which what they did is they basically just, okay, torch, whoosh, threw it on the ground. Okay, great, now we got light. Well, then the bison also turns visible and invisible every other round. So every other round, you can't see it, which means you get disadvantage on any attack against it. Which I felt was pretty good, and I think it dragged the fight out a little bit, but I think it kind of kept the players on their toes, and it kind of gave them a chance to kind of trying to recoup themselves. Okay, everyone ready? And okay, turns visible. Okay, go, 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 go. Okay, it's invisible again. Okay, heal, 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 heal. And the other issue was the fact that then I had minions for every boss fight. The air elementals minions I was using, they would try and douse the torch. I knew that the players are going to have to find some way to give light. So what if I had the minions be focusing on whoever's generating the light, it tries to take them out, or it tries to douse whatever source they create. And that's exactly what they did. And they managed to douse the light once, and the players freaked out when that happened. They're like, oh my gosh, I go over and I light my own torch and whoosh, throw it on the ground. I said, all right. And after that, they realized what they had to do. So they would basically circle the torch, made sure no one got close, meanwhile trying to fight the bison. And it worked really well, actually. Beating this one, El Moria got the killing blow. I gave her invisibility, so she can actually turn invisible twice a day. Basically cast invisibility on herself. She's excited about that. She also gains a mind blast as her second ability. I should mention that Garza's secret second ability is a resurrection. Don't tell anybody. Basically, the same thing. Hey, if you die, everyone in like 40 feet radius has to make a dex save or take a bunch of damage. It's basically like a fireball, but with a 40-foot range, and you come back to half health. Because I figured, yeah, you come back, but odds are you're going to do a bunch of damage to your opponents, so people are not going to be... It's a, you still don't want to go unconscious kind of thing. But I thought that would be pretty good. Elmoria has a Mind Blast. Again, she'll unlock that at some point. But then they went up. Now it's time for the riddle. Let me pull up my notes because it's been so long that I have to check my notes. And the riddle I went with was all about but cannot be seen, can be captured, cannot be held. And that was another kind of stumper. I think this one only took them like maybe 2, maybe 3 minutes before they realized, oh, it's the wind. Okay, got it. But again, it didn't take them too long, which I was glad. I didn't want it to take too long. I think it was the perfect time where it made them think without frustrating them. And at that point, it was this ball of air then that they had to destroy, which they did by burning up, which I was okay with. I thought that's fine. They then they're like, okay, now we've destroyed all 4 towers. Now it's time to take on the Cleric and his ritual circle. And that's exactly what they did. They head straight down. Of course, they're noticing at this point that it's quiet and there's nobody. And as they enter the main hall, they just see the bodies strewn across the floor as a result of Kiko and Arillo's handiwork early on. And they were like, this isn't all of them, so something's clearly going on. We're missing some, but that's okay. Whatever. They didn't even really. They're like, okay, there's fewer than you saw, but they're like, okay, they probably ran away, or were killed elsewhere in the temple or something. And with that, they're like, okay, now we go up the door, and they basically were like, okay, you guys ready? Yeah. They break down the door. They come into this room that they've been in already once, and sure enough, there's the Cleric, and there's Master Lareth, and there's another figure. This was Aluza, the Enforcer, who was a nature paladin. I kind of thought it'd be cool to have, like, okay, we'll have a Cleric, we'll have a focus spellcaster, and we'll have a paladin. All kind of religious, magical, but with varying degrees of magic versus brute force. And now we entered the final fight. The Cleric, he's like, it is too late. The ritual is complete. And soon, elemental chaos will envelop this world. And of course the player's like, yeah, not if we destroy your circle. And it becomes this fight. I threw like 1 elemental minion of each, plus Lareth, Aluza, and the Cleric. And it was a good fight, I felt. We had the 4 of them. We had the 4 players. We had Osborne, Alea, Entrope. 5. Elmoria, and Garza, and it was plus Arillo and Kiko, 7 on 7 basically. They take out the minions really fast. They start fighting back and forth. Great, heroes go down, heroes come up. Villains, get restrained. Villains free themselves. The big thing I had though is the portal starts forming in the ceiling, and it just is very small, but starts growing over the course of the battle. Meanwhile, what I did is each round I would roll a d4, and depending on what it was, there was a different elemental area effect. Let's see. Again, I'm checking my notes here, mostly so I can tell you guys what I did, because it actually worked pretty well. For instance, the ground becomes slick, and if you move, you have to make a DC 18 dex save, or you trip, which again, you spend 15 feet of your movement to get back up. But then if you try and move again, you fall down again, and you have to repeat the process, which I thought was pretty great. For the air, it was gusty wind, and basically it blows everyone away from the center, which was really good, because then it kind of forced the players to forced them to the sides, away from where the villains were. Fire, of course, everything's... I kind of did a reverse where the walls start heating up, and so everyone within 10 feet of the wall takes 10 points of damage. So it's kind of funny, the air pushes you towards the wall, but then fire, like, you want to move away from the wall. Earth, which actually never came up, which I was a little disappointed for. Earth, I had specific parts of the ground that would turn into sinkholes. So if you step on this part, you're sucked into basically quicksand, which I was a little disappointed because I thought that would be a pretty good thing to throw the players up against. But again, this was a good battle. It was fairly long. It took a while, but it never felt sloggy because they were always making progress. They killed Master Lara. They almost took out Aluza. They got Aluza on his knees. The Cleric is almost dead as well. The heroes have almost won. They're all beaten. They're almost. I think Kiko went unconscious. I think Arilla went unconscious. They're almost all gone. And then I started sending the elementals up into the portal. What I did is they were all very weak, and so they would regenerate basically every couple of rounds I did. I didn't do it every round because I knew that would get annoying. But at every other round or so, I would regenerate elementals, and they start just being sucked into the portal. And what I would do is I'd roll a d4, kind of following the same chart, and depending on what effect came up, that elemental would get sucked in. And if it was a repeat, I would just roll again. And as each one was sucked in, the portal would get stronger and stronger, and the players realized, oh crap, time bomb! We have to kill these elementals. And meanwhile, they're also trying to take care of the Cleric. They do kill the Cleric. 3 of the elementals have been sucked in. They realize this is it. We have to kill the last one. Garza goes for it. And I made a mistake. I will correct myself. I did not use minions for this one. I used full elementals. I used 4 full elementals. So they were around there the whole time. Sorry, I confused things. I apologize. So they have 4 elementals, and so that's just it. There wasn't regenerate. I was trying to figure out why that was in my head, but whatever. Oh, because of the water fight. So 4 elementals. They had managed to I remember now, they had managed to wail on them and weaken them, and that was when I kind of realized I want to do something different to make this more of a time bomb. That was when I started sucking them in, and some of them were at full strength, some of them would be almost dead, and it came down to the water elemental was all that was left. Again, Aluza is all but dead, the Cleric is dead, Lareth is dead. It's basically, stop this water elemental and we win. And Garza goes and swings in. She's got 6 attacks. She's a fighter. Plus she gets, she's dual wielding, so she's coming in with 6 attacks. She swings. She knocks the thing down with her first 4 attacks. The thing's down to 16 hits. She rolls her 5th attack, misses, comes in the 6th attack, and I say, okay, this guy's got 8 hit points left. After everything, he had 8 hit points left. She had 1 attack. She rolls her damage, 5 points. The water elemental gets sucked in. The players all get sucked in. And that's where we left it. So, we'll be back for another campaign diary, hopefully pretty soon. We'll continue from how things went from there. And as always, guys,